At that moment, I believed it might finally be the occasion when I would attain the attention and approval from my parents that I had always desired. My fiancé and I had spent a wonderful 5 years together, and we were both incredibly excited to start the next chapter of our lives. We dreamed about our wedding, discussed details, and spent countless hours carefully planning everything to ensure it would be a day that truly reflected our relationship. I hoped my parents would share my excitement and enthusiasm for this new chapter in our lives. After all, this was a major milestone in my life, and I had always expected my parents to be an important part of it. However, I was making a huge mistake. The moment I told them the wedding date, the first words out of my mother's mouth weren't heartfelt congratulations or an excited congratulations. Instead, she immediately replied, "But your sister just got married this year. Do you really want to do it now?" It felt like a punch to the stomach. I had expected to hear something positive, something that reflected the excitement and joy I was feeling. Instead, I was met with a tone that seemed almost dismissive, as if she was downplaying the significance of my special day. It was as though the news of my engagement barely registered with her, and her only concern was that my wedding might somehow overshadow my sister's. I tried to explain that our wedding was planned for a different time of year and that we had carefully chosen the date. I thought she would understand that I had no intention of stealing happiness from my sister or competing with her. But she was so fixated on the idea of not creating competition that she couldn't grasp how much this meant to me. It was as if she was implying I had planned my wedding just to spite my sister. The truth is, our dates just happened to fall in the same year. Realistically, people often get married in the same year, and it shouldn't be a big deal. But in my parents' world, everything revolves around my sister, and I'm just a supporting character. At first, I tried to ignore it, thinking that if my mother saw how genuinely happy I was about my wedding, she would be happy for me too. I thought that over time her focus would shift, and she would start to support this new chapter in my life. To make things easier, I even suggested downsizing our plans and having a smaller, more intimate ceremony if that would make her feel more comfortable. I wanted my parents to be part of our celebration, and I thought that if I adjusted things to her comfort, she might reconsider her attitude. However, despite my efforts to address her concerns, she refused to listen. Her response was practically the same every time, insisting she didn't want to split attention between two weddings in the same year because it would take away from my sister's special moment. Honestly, I was stunned. My sister had already had her special moment, a lavish wedding, an extravagant reception, everything. My mother was at the center of it, basking in the spotlight and soaking up all the praise and attention. It was my sister's shining moment, carried out with all the grandeur one could imagine. And now, it was supposed to be my turn. Yet suddenly, I felt as though I was caught in some competition over something that had never been important from the start, as if I were trying to steal something. It was confusing and, to be honest, deeply hurtful. All I wanted was to celebrate love and start my life with my fiancé, yet I felt as if I were being punished for it. I remembered how my mother had acted during my sister's wedding. She was front and center, enthusiastically showing off the wedding photos and recounting every detail of the day to anyone who would listen. It was as if my sister's wedding was the only event that mattered, and everything else was secondary. Now, as I was about to have my own moment of joy and celebration, my mother behaved as though my wedding was somehow a threat to that precious spotlight. Though I was deeply hurt, I tried to stay focused on what mattered most to my fiancé and me. We had poured so much effort into planning the wedding and wanted it to be a day full of love and happiness, unaffected by family drama. So, we decided to continue preparing, determined to make it a special day with the people who truly wanted to be there. However, as the wedding day approached, it became increasingly clear that my mother wasn't going to change her mind. Her repeated comments about not wanting to divide attention between two weddings in the same year and how my wedding might take away from my sister's special moment started to feel more like excuses than genuine concerns. It seemed as though she was using this as a way to justify her decision not to attend, rather than facing the reality that she simply didn't want to be there. After a few more conversations, or rather arguments, it became evident that my mother wasn't going to budge. She outright said she wouldn't come to the wedding because it was too much for her and she didn't want to hurt my sister's feelings. Honestly, she was running away. By refusing to attend, she made her priorities crystal clear, even though I wasn't forcing her to choose between us. At that point, I gave up trying to appease her. I could no longer keep bending over backward to satisfy her ridiculous reasoning. It was incredibly frustrating, and frankly, I wasn't going to let her absurd excuses ruin what should be one of the happiest days of my life. This was my wedding. A moment I had dreamed about for years. I wasn't about to let my parents' lack of support take away all the joy and excitement. With a mixture of determination and defiance, I decided to move forward with the wedding plans without them. Throughout this painful experience, my fiancé was my rock. He was incredibly supportive, and I couldn't have asked for a better partner to get through this mess. In fact, he came up with a thoughtful idea. He suggested that we write a speech together for the reception. It would acknowledge the difficult reality without being overly confrontational or provocative. It was a way to recognize the uncomfortable situation while keeping things elegant and respectful. I embraced the idea and put my heart into crafting the speech. I wanted to express gratitude to everyone who came and supported us, but I also wanted to include a special acknowledgement for my mother, even though she wouldn't be there. The speech went something like this. First, I'd like to express my gratitude to those who couldn't be here today, including my parents. I imagine my mother has been busy ensuring that my sister's wedding earlier this year remains the most important event in our family's history. I completely understand her decision not to be here today, so as not to overshadow my sister's special day. But I am grateful for the life lessons she has taught me, like how to handle being second best. They've truly prepared me for today. I felt that this speech struck the right emotional chord. It was a mix of gratitude and a little honesty. There was no intent to be mean or hurtful. I simply wanted to speak my truth and acknowledge my reality in a dignified way. I was tired of pretending that everything was okay. I felt my emotions deserved to be recognized, even if it meant addressing them during my wedding. After the wedding, something unexpected happened. People started talking about the speech and sharing it on social media, and it went viral. I never anticipated this, but before I knew it, it had become a topic of conversation among family, friends, and acquaintances. Some people supported me, saying it was brave to confront the situation honestly, while others thought it was inappropriate or that I had crossed a line. A few days ago, my mother called me in a rage. She unleashed a tirade, accusing me of disrespecting the family by exposing private matters in front of everyone at the wedding. I couldn't get a word in edgewise. She poured all her frustrations onto me, and it was overwhelming. She even accused me of deliberately trying to humiliate her, which was incredibly painful to hear. The purpose of the speech had been to face the situation honestly, not to shame her. I tried to explain that I was simply speaking my truth and wasn't going to hide how deeply hurt I was by my parents' decision not to attend the wedding. I had hoped that being honest might help in some way, but she wasn't willing to accept my perspective, even though she understood it. Her reaction was focused more on how others perceived her than on the impact her actions had on me. It seemed like maintaining her image was her main concern, rather than acknowledging the hurt she had caused me. Honestly, this is a difficult situation. I never imagined that standing up for myself would lead to such a rift. It is difficult to accept that my attempt to share my feelings honestly has resulted in so much pain and guilt, and I did not anticipate it would escalate to this. It weighs heavily on my heart. At the same time, there's a strange sense of validation in knowing that people are starting to see the reality I've been dealing with. It feels like a burden has been lifted. I no longer have to pretend everything is fine. For years, I've lived in the shadow of my parents' favoritism, trying to measure up to my sister. Now, I finally have the chance to shine a light on this dynamic, and it's a mix of liberating and unsettling emotions. I'm still in the process of coming to terms with everything. Unsurprisingly, my sister is siding with my mother. She feels that I overreacted and should have accepted that our mother couldn't be emotionally present in two places at once. How am I supposed to accept that my parents didn't want to attend my wedding because they didn't want to overshadow my sister's special day from a few months ago? I wasn't asking for a second wedding or trying to steal my sister's spotlight. I just wanted them to be there for me, for once, without it being a competition with my sister's previous wedding. I feel like my sister completely misses the point. This isn't about competition or diminishing the importance of her wedding. It's about basic support and family bonds. It's about the expectation any child should have of their parents being present for the significant moments in their lives. Now, as a newlywed, I find myself dealing with an entirely new level of family drama. My mother still hasn't spoken to me, and our relationship feels like it's on shaky ground. It's disheartening that what should have been a joyous occasion, my wedding, has become a battleground for unresolved family issues. My sister has made it clear that she thinks I'm in the wrong and that I should have just accepted the situation without making a fuss. Some distant relatives reached out to express their support and told me they were proud of me for standing up for myself. Their understanding and encouragement were a beacon of hope, reminding me that there are individuals who recognize and support me. On the other hand, there are those who believe I crossed a line with that speech. They argue that family drama should be kept private and that I shouldn't have used my wedding as a platform to air grievances. Their opinions make me question whether I did the right thing or if I should have handled things differently. At the end of the day, I'm glad I stood up for myself. For the first time, I didn't let my parents' favoritism dictate how I feel about my life. I won't apologize for wanting my wedding to be about my fiancé and me, or for being honest about the hurt caused by her decision. However, I wonder if there's a way to mend this. Part of me thinks I should try reaching out to my mother to explain my perspective, but another part of me feels like I've already said everything I needed to say. I doubt she'll ever truly understand my feelings, and I don't know if I have the energy to keep reaching out to someone who refuses to see my side. So here I am, with a mother who won't speak to me and a sister who sees me as the villain. While I'm satisfied with my decision to make that speech at my wedding, I'm at a loss for what to do next with my family. Should I try to repair the relationship, or should I accept that this might be the way things are forever? As time went by, my mother persistently tried to contact me. What was supposed to be a romantic getaway with my husband turned into a barrage of angry calls and messages from my mother about the speech. It was so stressful that I decided to block her. I hoped she would take the hint and give me some time, but of course, that didn't stop her. When we got home, there were countless voicemails on the house phone. One after another, the messages were filled with accusations that I had humiliated my parents and ruined their reputation. It was infuriating to listen to. Thinking maybe I could calm her down and have a normal conversation, I decided to listen to a few of the messages. That was a huge mistake. In one message, she actually threatened to sue me for defamation. I couldn't believe my own mother was threatening to take legal action against me over a wedding speech. I understand she's angry, but this had reached a completely new level. I called her back and tried to explain that the video going viral wasn't my fault. Someone else posted it, I don't even know who, and honestly, I don't care anymore. I told her this directly. But she refused to listen. Her focus remained entirely on how others perceived her and how betrayed she felt that I spoke my truth. I tried to explain that I wasn't trying to humiliate her. I was being honest about how it hurt me that she chose not to my wedding. But she wouldn't hear any of it. I worry about what will happen next. If my mother is serious about filing a lawsuit, what kind of impact will it have on the family? What will happen to my relationship with my father, my sister, and the rest of the family? I fear that this situation will create an even larger rift. There has been a new development in my battle with my mother. After a heated argument last week, I received a letter. It claimed to be from a lawyer, stating that my mother was suing me for defamation and demanding $5,000 in damages. Standing in the kitchen, holding that letter, I felt panic rising within me. I couldn't believe my mother would take things this far. Threatening a lawsuit in the heat of an argument is one thing, but actually taking steps to make it happen is another level of madness. My mother, who works as a hairstylist, claimed that the wedding speech video impacted her income. She alleged that clients had canceled appointments and her reputation had been damaged. The letter went on to say that she had suffered irreversible harm and was entitled to compensation for lost income and emotional distress. At first, I felt incredibly anxious, my stomach in knots. What if this was a real lawsuit? How would I defend myself? Did my mother really have a case? It might sound dramatic, but I even started imagining her glaring at me in court while her lawyer questioned me. Everything felt surreal and deeply unsettling. But as I read the letter more closely, I started to notice something strange. In fact, several things seemed off. For one, the letter was riddled with spelling mistakes, as if no one had bothered to proofread it. The sentences barely made sense, and the overall presentation was sloppy. There was a phone number for the law firm listed in the letter, so I decided to call and verify its legitimacy. The phone just rang and rang, there was no voicemail or answering service. I tried calling at different times throughout the day, but I never got a response. Something felt very wrong, so I did what any sensible person would do. I Googled the lawyer and the law firm. Nothing came up. Not just minimal search results. Absolutely nothing. That's when I realized the law firm and the lawyer didn't exist, and the whole thing was fake. My mother had tried to scare me with a bogus lawsuit, and she hadn't even done a good job of it. I couldn't help but laugh at the absurdity of it all. Who fabricates fake legal documents to threaten their own child? The moment I realized the letter was fake, the fear and anxiety I had been feeling started to fade, replaced by a strange mix of emotions. I felt relief and anger all at once. Relief that my mother wasn't actually suing me, and anger at a parent who would stoop so low. No matter what issues existed, this felt like a massive line had been crossed. I told my husband everything, showed him the letter, and explained the situation in detail. He was just as shocked as I was. We talked about why my mother would do something like this. He suggested that maybe she was desperate and didn't know any other way to get my attention or retaliate for the wedding speech. But that didn't make the situation any better. Instead of trying to have a conversation, she had tried to manipulate me with a fake lawsuit, and that hurt deeply. It felt like controlling or punishing me was more important to her than resolving the issue. This wasn't something I could easily forgive. After the fake lawsuit letter, I had reached my limit. I deliberated whether to confront my mother, but I knew I could not let it without addressing the issue. After a few days of thinking, I decided to confront her. It wasn't an easy decision, but I felt it was time to bring everything into the open. I drove to my parents' house. I was honestly very nervous, unsure of how the conversation would go. I thought there was a chance she might slam the door in my face. but I knew this was something I needed to do to find peace. When my mother saw me, she looked surprised. Her first words were, "What are you doing here? You should be talking to my lawyer." The way she spoke about the fake lawsuit as if it were legitimate made me want to laugh, but I kept my composure. I looked her in the eye and told her directly that I knew the lawsuit letter was fake. At first, she feigned ignorance, but when I pointed out the spelling mistakes, the non-existent law firm, and the unreachable phone number, she fell silent. After a pause, she admitted it. "Fine," she said, "but I didn't have any other choice. You humiliated me in front of everyone." Her words felt like a punch to the stomach. I couldn't believe she truly saw herself as the victim. I explained to her that the internet never forgets and that even if the video were taken down, there were likely copies that couldn't be erased. I told her that this wasn't something she could control or erase, and a fake lawsuit wouldn't solve anything. But instead of understanding, she doubled down. She started accusing me of ruining her life, acting selfishly, and trying to destroy her reputation out of jealousy toward my sister. She called me a selfish child and berated me for always being envious of my sister. I had come hoping for some kind of resolution, but her refusal to see my side made it clear there would be none. I calmly told her that I had shared my feelings during my wedding and I wasn't going to apologize for it. I said I wouldn't apologize for the years of hurt my parents caused me, or for the fact that the speech was the only way I could express myself. I told her the video going viral wasn't my responsibility, and I wasn't sorry for calling out the favoritism and neglect I had endured. Finally, I told her that if she wasn't willing to acknowledge the pain she had caused me, I didn't want any further contact. I said I was done with the drama, the manipulation, and the guilt trips. For my own mental health, I needed to distance myself from her and my father for the time being. With that, I left the house. I'm still a bit shaken, but I hope to move on and enjoy my married life with my wonderful husband. It's been a year since then. My husband and I have settled into a quiet home in the suburbs and started a new chapter in our lives. The conflict with my mother brought unexpected changes. It seems that my mother's salon's reputation did take a hit. I've heard from my friend that the criticism on social media drove away some of her regular clients, forcing her to reflect on her actions for the first time. But honestly, it no longer matters to me. Recently, a friend shared an interesting story about my mother. Apparently, she was treated similarly by her own mother when she was younger. Learning this strangely lightened my heart. I no longer feel hatred or anger, just a sense of pity. Life in our new place has been more fulfilling than I ever imagined. My husband has started taking cooking classes, and I'm thriving as a freelance graphic designer. Free from the weight of family pressures, I finally feel like I'm living my own life. My mother has yet to apologize, but that's no longer important to me. I occasionally hear about her through a distant aunt. She's still busy with my sister's family but reportedly mentions me from time to time. I've also made new friends, especially through an online community of people with similar experiences. Sharing and encouraging one another has been an incredible source of strength. My husband's parents have embraced me as their own. Our weekly family dinners remind me of what true family warmth feels like. I now genuinely believe that love and mutual care matter more than blood relations. The past year has been challenging, but it's made me stronger and helped me discover my true self. Now, I live my life based on my own values, free from the expectations or judgments of others. Sometimes I think about my parents and sister, but I've learned to keep those memories quietly in the past. Their lives are theirs, and mine is mine. The most important lesson I've learned this year is the courage to prioritize myself. Reevaluating family relationships isn't selfish, it's a vital step towards setting healthy boundaries. There may come a time when I reconnect with my parents or sister in some way, but I know I won't be hurt like I was before. I have a loving husband, a new family, and, most importantly, the strength to value myself.